and welcome back to the episode 7 of the People You Meet and the Books You Read podcast. I'm your host, your ghost host, encouraging leader Michael Jones. And if you're watching the video portion of this, especially the day it's recorded, which is October 31st, 2021, Halloween, I'm dressed up Halloween outfit. I've got my skeleton costume on. I am not wearing the mask, so don't worry. I'm not going to scare you like that. I'm not wearing the mask, but I'm recording this Halloween episode, this Halloween version of the People You Meet and the Books You Read. And if you heard the musical intro, you might get a little bit of a clue. That was a copyright Disney from 1949. It's from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and it's Bing Crosby singing Ichabod Crane. So again, that's copyright Disney 1949. It's been a long time since that was released. We're actually going to talk about The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, written by Washington Irving. And some accounts say it was released in 1819. Some accounts say 1820. Either way, 1819 or 1820, we're going to talk about The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving and how you can apply a couple of lessons from that to your professional and your personal life. So sit back and you're going to have an interesting ride as I get a little bit of a spin on a tale that you might have not heard in a long time. And you definitely would likely not have heard this perspective on it. And if you have been here for the last session, especially when I interviewed the one and only Sean Croxton, thank you for bearing with me because my audio was not very up to snuff on that episode. I was recording from my computer and I used the computer audio instead of my microphone for that one. The main part, Sean Croxton sounded amazing. He sounded very professional and he had some fantastic advice. So if you want to hear that, go back and listen. Bear with me on the audio portion of that as I get better with that and just help me to help myself. So today we're going to talk about The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, 1819, 1820, whichever one it is. And I'm going to give you a couple of leadership and professional takeaways from that. So if you need a little bit of a refresher on The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, also known as Ichabod Crane, I'm going to give that to you. You might have only seen this in passing. You might not have ever actually read it, or you might only be familiar with the Disney version. And in the Disney version, one of the characters, Brom Bones, is almost an identical character to Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. In fact, you could replace one with the other and it would be pretty much the same character in all senses of it. So in how he looks and how he acts and his mannerisms and just everything about him. But that was my only exposure to this, and I actually read it and listened to it on audio. It's an amazing story, and it's about somebody named Ichabod Crane who is in the upper New York area on the Hudson River. There's a small town that he goes, and he's what's called an itinerant teacher or schoolmaster. He goes to this community, which has a couple of different names, but Sleepy Hollow is the area where the story takes place, or the main part of the story, where it's said to be haunted. Ichabod Crane is described early on as a tall, lanky person. Talks about his shoes being maybe substituted for shovels because they're so big. It talks about his hands hanging down from his shirt or his jacket. It talks about him being, again, tall and lanky, having a broad, flat face, and it describes him having a long nose. He's very non-distinguished looking. He's very plain looking, and it talks at length about when he rides his horse, how he looks kind of silly or goofy. So Ichabod Crane absolutely is not somebody who you would consider attractive or handsome or gregarious in that sense of the word, but he is very charming, especially to the ladies of the community. Now, the men of the community, the farmers especially, look down somewhat on Ichabod Crane because they view what they have to pay to send their kids to school as a burden. And Ichabod Crane actually has a side hustle to help to feed, to actually pay for the meals. One of the things that he really likes to do is he loves to eat. So he has a side hustle where he teaches the kids voice lessons, and actually to endear himself to these farmers, he works for them along the way, which I'll get to in a little bit for the two takeaways. But Ichabod Crane is a school teacher. He's kind of homely, and he falls in love, or he has plans to marry a lady named Katrina, Katrina is the only daughter of a very wealthy farmer in that area who came from he's a Dutch farmer, and he's one of the people who's the wealthiest in the area, but he doesn't flaunt that wealth. He's very comfortable in his wealth, but he doesn't flaunt that wealth, and he doesn't make a lot of big shows about it. One of the things that we see at the tail end of the story is that he has a party, and he has a really extravagant food spread, and just shares a lot. He has a lot that he has with the community. So this daughter is very wealthy, and Ichabod Crane has plans to marry her because of, not only because of how much he loves her and cares for her, but what he would get out of that. He would get, of course, the inheritance of the property, and he has plans of what he wants to do to invest and to make that property grow more and more. So that's who Ichabod is, and that's what his plans are for this story. The other character in the story is a man named Brom Bones, and this is the one who, if you watch the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast, the cartoon version, you could substitute Brom Bones for Gaston, and interchange those two in either of the movies, and they're exactly the same character, to how they look, their mannerisms, just everything about them. So Brom Bones is a big guy, a burly guy. He has a little crew of friends that he goes around with, and they cause trouble. They drink. He's basically the ladies' man about town, and he also has his heart on marrying Katrina. But the thing about Brom Bones is that he's always ready for a fight, always ready for a challenge, and he always comes out on the better end of these fights. And he's often the referee of fights among the community because he's known as that person who's just basically a jock and a ladies' man. So when Brom Bones goes to call on Katrina, and when he goes to pay her a visit in their family home, he has a big horse he's also very well accomplished at riding horses, by the way. That comes into play later. But he has a big, very strong, muscular, athletic horse that he rides too. And when he has this horse tied up to the front of the mansion where Katrina lives, everybody else knows to not call on her because they see that Brom is courting her, and they don't want to give him any competition, so they pass on by, except for one. Except for Ichabod Crane. He still tries to have plans to win her love and to get married to her. And he knows that he can't compete with Brom in his looks or just how he is as a person overall. So he has other ways where he tries to win her heart. Now also Brom basically gets in the way of everything that Ichabod tries to do, and he knows that he can't fight him because Ichabod outsmarts him, and he basically stays away from him to avoid a fight. But what Brom Bones and his cronies do are they play practical jokes on Ichabod all the time. They do things to rearrange the schoolhouse to make him believe that witches are there, and they basically just give him heck for a lot of times. So they always are constantly trying to one-up Ichabod. And towards the end of the story, we have a tale where Ichabod gets an announcement or an invitation to a party that Katrina's father is having for all the people of the town. It's got a lot of lavish food. There's pies that it goes to describe, cakes, meats, just everything that you would think of displayed and available to the guests at this mansion. And Ichabod goes there, and he's essentially in heaven because, as I've said, he loves to eat, and he loves to eat probably as many as or as much as people love to drink and drink alcohol and just have a good time with that. So he's eating at this party, and another thing that he does very well in addition to singing is he's a great dancer. So there's music obviously at this party, and one of the things that when Ichabod hears music, he really takes up Katrina, and they dance, and he wins her affection that way by dancing with her. Well, this doesn't set very well with Brom, and Brom sets out to get even with him. So as the night goes on, people go home from the party, and Ichabod lingers on to try to spend some one-on-one time with Katrina. And as he gets to where he has to leave to go home, he's riding on a borrowed horse. It's actually a horse that's on up in age, and it's described in a lot of funny ways. But he's riding this horse to home, to where he's staying with another family, gets to a point where he needs to cross a little stream, and the horse gets spooked and goes a different direction because it sees a menacing figure kind of off in the distance. And that figure turns out to be the Headless Horseman. The Headless Horseman is the main ghost and scary story of the town. And it's said to be a Hessian who was somebody that fought in the Revolutionary War that lost their head in a cannonball accident or by a cannonball. And this Headless Horseman or Headless Hessian is described as riding this really strong, just really nice horse around to try to look for his head. And he's been spotted on a lot of occasions recently, as the townspeople say. And here Ichabod Crane comes face to face with the Headless Horseman, and he tries to outrun, tries to get his horse to outrun the Headless Horseman, which Brom Bones told a story of the other day this happening to him, and he actually says that he outran the Headless Horseman. So Ichabod tries to do this also. He recalls where Brom said he did this, and of course he can't outpace the horse. So he tries to slow down and go at a really slow pace, and the horse and the headless horseman match him for his pace. So he gets to a point where he's almost to the stream where he needs to cross, and there's some kind of a bridge there. And this is where legend says the headless horseman can't cross this area. So he gets across it, and Ichabod thinks that he's got it made, and the headless horseman takes his head and hurls it, throws it at him, and hits Brom Bones, or hits Ichabod Crane, sorry, knocks him off his horse. And the story goes that he's never seen again. And people speculate that Ichabod Crane disappeared because he was embarrassed because he didn't win over the heart of Katrina. People speculate that he went to another town and became a lawyer and had great success. And it's also said that Brom Bones would smile and kind of laugh whenever he would hear the story. And most people thought that it was him that dressed up like the headless horseman and did this to him. And the ladies of the town think that Ichabod got taken away by ghosts and spirits, and goblins actually took him away. So you never actually know what happens. But in a little bit of a postscript, there's somebody who seems a lot like an older Ichabod Crane who hears the story and asks a couple of questions about it. So that's the story of the Headless Horseman, or the legend of Sleepy Hollow, actually, with the Headless Horseman. And I want to share with you a couple of takeaways about what we can learn from Ichabod Crane. So a couple of the things that I pointed out is that Ichabod Crane had a side hustle. He taught kids how to sing, and he was really active in the choir at his church. He also would, although the farmers in his community would look down on him, he would spend time helping them when he would move from house to house, because an itinerant teacher or an itinerant schoolmaster, that's what they did in those days, is the townspeople would pay him a meager salary for doing what they did. But he would also go live for a week or so at a time with each farmer and eat their food and stay with them. And they viewed that as a burden. So what Ichabod Crane would do was he would do light chores around the farm to help them and to win over those farmers, to help them think that he was not as much of a burden. So the first takeaway of this is, use the things that you've got. Use the things and not really use those, but leverage the things that you've got inside of you. Ichabod Crane, as I've also said and went to lengths to talk about, he was not a very handsome person. So you don't have to be cover of a magazine handsome. You don't have to be somebody who is using other things to get to a means that is not really somebody who you are. Ichabod Crane did something that was true to him. He was learned. He read a lot of books, so he shared that with people. He worked with these farmers to become a value to them, and he really was just somebody who was a dependable part of the community, where in most circles the schoolmaster is looked upon as somebody who's dead weight, essentially. So the first lesson from the legend of Sleepy Hollow and how to be like Ichabod Crane is, use the things, the talents that you have, to add value where you are. Now, Ichabod Crane didn't have to do anything beyond what he already did as a schoolmaster. The side hustle, his voice lessons, kind of contributed or kind of lended to what he did already. So as we talked about with Acres of Diamonds, all of your opportunities are right there in front of you. So like Ichabod Crane, look around you for opportunities, look around you for places to serve, and you'll find them. You don't have to not be true to yourself to do those things, and you don't have to do things to cheat people or get ill-gotten gains. All you have to do is serve where you are. And the second thing is, now, despite what Ichabod Crane had as his reasons for the goals of marrying Katrina, he did have goals ahead of him, and he didn't let those other things that were outside deter him from reaching those goals. As I've also said, Brom Bones would go to the point of even fighting other people or keep them away from trying to court Katrina, but that didn't deter Ichabod Crane. He stayed focused on his goal, and he tried to leverage the things that he was good at. I mentioned he danced, and he was good at dancing, and he was really a strong character as far as how he talked and shared things from books that he read with Katrina. So he used the things that were good about him, and he used the positive things about him to move himself closer to those goals. So as you have goals in your professional life and in your personal life, stay focused on what you can do to get yourself closer to those goals. Don't let things deter you. There may be Brom Bones virtually or figuratively in your life that get in the way of your goals. And as we talked about also with 3 Feet from Gold, that means you're probably close to achieving those. So two things that are probably you never expected out of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow that you can apply to your professional and personal life to be like Ichabod Crane and how to leverage the things that you're good at. Use those things that are good about you. Use those things where you've got talents, and use those things to help you, to serve you, to add value to other people. Also focus on your goals. So you might not have ever expected something like this. This might have caught you completely off guard, but I hope it added a little bit of value and maybe a little bit of a smile to you, especially if you're seeing this on Halloween. Join us next time, and I'm going to have an actual person that you meet, somebody named Fitz Kohler, who I admire and adore very much. She helped me with weight loss and a lot of other things. So you're gonna hear an amazing person in Fitz Kohler in our next session. Thank you so much for all the things that you do. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode and listen to this podcast. If I've added a little bit of value to you, simply share me with your friends. I'm going to give you the way to contact me and let you know how to get in touch with me later on. But just share me with your friends. Give me a positive review on iTunes. And I hope this episode brightened your day just a little bit. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a super fantastic day.